by the gods, if anyone out there can hear this through the collapsing fabric of reality, consider yourselves truly blessed or cursed. You're tuned into the Ethereal Announcer, broadcasting, well, from right here, in what used to be the glorious heart of the Roman Empire, in the year, let's just say, a bad one. My name is Quintus Flavius, and if the sheer audacity of this trans-dimensional signal doesn't compel you to immediately hit that subscribe button and enlist in our dwindling legions of listeners, then, frankly, even Jupiter can't help you. Do it now, before the next wave of Goths or taxis arrives. And tell me, if this temporal anomaly allows, where in the multiverse are you listening from? What year is it in your time? And what hour do these final desperate whispers reach you? We're taking bets on how long this lasts. Now, grab your amphora of watered wine because the good stuff is long gone, and prepare for the tragic comedy of an empire's final bow. Welcome, fellow citizens, to another broadcast from the heart of a city that's seen better days. Remember the stories they told us? Of the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, a time when the empire stretched from the sun-scorched sands of Syria to the misty shores of Britannia. We were the center of the world, the pinnacle of civilization. Our legions were invincible, our aqueducts were the envy of the known world, and our wine, well, the wine is still good, thank the gods for small mercies. They painted a picture of a golden age, a sprawling, magnificent beast of an empire, basking in eternal glory. It's a lovely thought, isn't it? Almost makes you forget the stench of burning tenements and the ever-present feeling that the next barbarian at the gate might actually have a decent plan for urban renewal. They say Rome wasn't built in a day. Turns out, it took a few centuries to properly dismantle itself, too. Progress. The cracks, you see, didn't appear overnight. It was more like a slow, creeping rot. It started subtly, a little tremor here, a crack in the marble there. You'd notice the bread costing a few more sestertii than it did last week. The new emperor, hailed as a savior, would be found face down in his villa a few months later, the victim of an unfortunate and entirely predictable bout of indigestion. It became a morbid sort of game, guessing how long the new guy would last. My money was always on not long enough to learn his full title. Then came the 3rd century crisis, or as I like to call it, when crisis became a lifestyle. It was a delightful 50-year period where we had, something like 26 so-called emperors. Most of them met rather grisly ends, which, I suppose, provided some fleeting entertainment for the masses. It was a revolving door of generals and ambitious politicians, each one promising to restore order, and each one leaving the empire a little more fractured, a little more broke. The currency became so devalued you'd need a wheelbarrow of coins just to buy a loaf of bread. I once saw a man try to pay for his dinner with a handful of silver-washed bronze. The taverner just laughed and threw a stale bread roll at him. The political instability was a special kind of torment. One day you're pledging allegiance to Emperor Gordian I, the next it's Gordian II, and just when you finally got that down, you find out they're both dead, and now we're on to Papianus and Balbinus. You'd have statues commissioned, coins minted, and before the artist could even finish the chiseled nose, the subject was already 6 feet under, and his rival was demanding a new, even more flattering portrait. It's a wonder our sculptors didn't just give up and start making generic, vaguely imperial-looking busts with interchangeable heads. And the barbarians, the endless, endless barbarians. Goths, Vandals, Franks. It's like a who's who of people who really, really don't appreciate Roman architecture. They started as a distant threat, a story to scare children. Finish your porridge, little Lucius, or the Goths will get you. Now they're practically our neighbors, and they're not borrowing a cup of sugar, let me tell you. They're tearing down the fence, trampling the flower beds, and eyeing the silverware with a gleam in their eye that suggests they're not here for a friendly chat about property lines. We build walls to keep them out, but it feels more like we've just trapped ourselves in. It's the slow, grinding nature of it all that truly eats at you. It's not one grand, heroic battle that marks the end. It's the constant, gnawing uncertainty. It's the knowledge that the food shipments might not arrive next week, that the soldiers guarding the walls are more interested in their next paycheck than in defending the city, and that the man you call your neighbor might be sharpening a knife and waiting for the right moment to turn on you. The betrayal isn't just from the ambitious senators or the power-hungry generals. It's in the eyes of the baker who waters down his wine and the merchant who gives you short weight. Trust has become a luxury we can no longer afford. They whisper of a new capital in the east, a new Rome, a place where the emperor can hide behind stronger walls and pretend the rest of us aren't slowly sinking into the mire. Let them have their gilded cage. We, the true sons and daughters of the she-wolf, are left here to watch the embers of a once great fire slowly die out. There's a strange dark beauty in it, a final defiant spectacle. We are living through the end of an age, a story that will be told for 1,000 years. And you are here with me, listening to the final, ragged breaths of an empire. If you find this unraveling as morbidly fascinating as I do, if you want to bear witness to the fall of the greatest empire the world has ever known, then you know what to do. Don't let this broadcast fade into the static of history. Click that subscribe button. Enroll in this chronicle of collapse. For in a world of fleeting loyalties and crumbling foundations, your subscription is the one thing that might just outlast Rome itself. Do it now, before the signal dies for good. Greetings, citizens of the eternal, well, formerly eternal city. Another evening descends upon us, and the air, as always, is thick with the sweet perfume of burning ambition and existential dread. Tonight, I want to talk about our guests, the ones who arrived uninvited and have shown a remarkable reluctance to leave. You remember the good old days, don't you? When a barbarian was a simple creature, they'd rattle their sabers at the frontier. We'd send out a legion or two, a few decisive victories later, and they'd be back to their bleak, uncivilized homelands, leaving us to our wine and our mosaics. Ah, the simplicity of it all. Now things are a tad more complicated. The new breed of barbarian isn't just a marauding army looking for a quick score. No, that would be far too straightforward. Instead, we have entire nations on the move. Men, women, children, livestock, the whole dreary lot of them, trekking across the continent, driven by forces we can only guess at. Some say it's the Huns, a particularly nasty bunch from the east, pushing everyone else into our lap. Others whisper it's a change in the climate, their lands no longer able to support them. Whatever the reason, our borders have become less of a fortified line and more of a suggestion. We didn't just have barbarians at the gate, we had them in the gate. And then they stayed for dinner, and then they took the silverware. It started with a trickle, then a stream, and now it's a veritable flood. They come not as conquerors, but as refugees, as asylum seekers, as a colossal headache for the imperial administration. They plead for land, for food, for protection, and we, in our infinite and frankly misguided wisdom, often grant it to them. We call them foederati, allies of Rome, settled on our lands in exchange for military service. A brilliant plan, on paper. In reality, it's like inviting a pack of wolves to guard your sheep. Sure, they might occasionally scare off a rival predator, but you're never quite sure when they'll decide the sheep look tastier than anything you're offering them. We've armed them, trained them in our ways of war, and then we act surprised when they turn those very skills against us. It's a classic Roman tragedy, really, full of irony, betrayal, and a healthy dose of "I told you so." Take the Goths, for instance. A charming people, if you enjoy dour expressions and a penchant for pillaging. They begged to be allowed across the Danube, fleeing the Huns. We let them in, and then, through a series of administrative blunders that would be comical if they weren't so catastrophic, we managed to starve them, cheat them, and generally treat them with a contempt that only a Roman official can truly master. The result? The Battle of Adrianople in 378. A complete and utter disaster. An emperor dead on the field, and 2/3 of the Eastern Roman army wiped out. Not our finest hour. And what did we learn from this debacle? Absolutely nothing. We made more treaties, settled more tribes within our borders, and continued to be surprised when they didn't magically transform into model Roman citizens overnight. We expected them to adopt our customs, our language, our laws. Instead, they clung to their own traditions, their own leaders, and their own deep-seated resentment of the people who looked down on them as uncivilized savages. And you blamed them. We call them barbarians, yet we're the ones who can't seem to manage our own affairs. The problem, you see, is one of assimilation, or rather, our complete and utter failure to achieve it. We thought we could absorb them, that the sheer gravitational pull of Roman civilization would be enough to smooth out their rough edges. But the empire is old, and its pull is weakening. It's like a dying star, still radiating a faint warmth, but no longer capable of holding its planets in orbit, and so these new additions to our cosmic family are drifting away, taking chunks of our territory with them. It's a slow, insidious bleed, a province here, a city there, not lost in a blaze of glory, but simply reappropriated. The new landlords don't bother with the niceties of Roman law. They have their own codes, their own way of doing things, and if you happen to be a Roman landowner in their newly acquired territory, well, let's just say your property values are about to take a significant hit, along with your life expectancy. And let's not forget the Vandals, a particularly enterprising group who decided they fancied a bit of Mediterranean sunshine. They swept through Gaul, then Spain, and then, in a move that still baffles our best military minds, they crossed into North Africa, our breadbasket, the source of much of our grain, and in 455 they did the unthinkable. They sacked Rome, not with the fury of a traditional enemy, but with the cold, calculating efficiency of a disgruntled tenant stripping a property of its assets. For 2 weeks they plundered the city, taking everything that wasn't nailed down, and some things that were. The irony is that many of these barbarians are now the backbone of our army. We don't have enough Romans willing to fight and die for the empire anymore, so we pay Goths, Franks, and an assortment of other hairy, uncouth individuals to do it for us. Our generals have unpronounceable names and a questionable loyalty to the city they're supposed to be defending. It's a surreal state of affairs. The fate of Rome rests in the hands of the very people we once considered our mortal enemy. And what of the Roman citizen in all this? We're caught in the middle, as always. We pay exorbitant taxes to fund an army that can't protect us, to support an emperor who's probably some barbarian general's puppet, and to maintain the illusion that we're still the masters of the world. We watch as our cities crumble, our trade routes are severed, and the once mighty legions are replaced by ragtag bands of mercenaries who are more interested in their next payday than in defending the honor of the empire. And it's a strange sort of existence, living in the twilight of an empire. There's a morbid curiosity to it all. You wake up each morning wondering what fresh disaster the day will bring. Will it be a new usurper marching on the city, a new wave of refugees at the gates, or will the price of bread simply double again, pushing more of your neighbors into destitution? It's a lottery of misery, and everyone's a winner. The funny thing is, I don't even hate them. Not really. The barbarians, I mean. They're just doing what people do, looking for a better life, a bit of land to call their own, a future for their children. It's just a shame they have to build it on the ruins of our own. But then, we built our empire on the ruins of others, didn't we? Perhaps this is just the cosmic bill coming due, a long, painful, and brutally ironic reckoning. And so we sit here, in this decaying city, listening to the winds of change howling through the broken columns of the Forum. We tell ourselves stories of the past, of a time when Rome was strong, when the world bent to our will, but they're just stories, and the reality is a far more interesting tale. A tale of slow, inexorable decline, of a giant brought to its knees not by a single mighty blow, but by 1,000 tiny cuts. And as the darkness gathers, as the last vestiges of our once great civilization flicker and fade, I can't help but feel a perverse sense of fascination. To be here, at the end of all things, to have a front row seat to the greatest show on earth, the fall of Rome. It's a spectacle of fire, of betrayal, of an entire world being remade before our very eyes. And I, for one, wouldn't miss it for the world. Which brings me to you, my fellow listeners, huddled in the dim light of your oil lamps, straining to hear my voice above the din of a collapsing world. You're not just a passive audience to these events. You are witnesses. You are the keepers of this story, the ones who will remember what it was like to live through the end of an era. And for that you deserve more than just my rambling thoughts. If you believe that this story needs to be told, if you feel the same morbid fascination with our imperial woes, then don't let this broadcast fade into the silence of the coming dark age. Do more than just listen. Become a part of this chronicle. Hit that subscribe button. Let your subscription be a testament to the fact that even as the empire falls, there are those who are determined to see it through to the bitter end. Don't let our imperial calamities go unheard. Your subscription is more than just a click. It's an act of defiance. It's a declaration that, even in the face of oblivion, we will not be silenced. It's a way of ensuring that the story of Rome, in all its tragic, comical, and absurd glory, will echo through the ages. So subscribe, now, before the barbarians cut the power for good. They say that when Rome falls, the world will fall with it. I don't know about that, but I do know that I'd rather face the end with a legion of subscribers at my back than alone in the dark. So do your part. Join our ranks, and together let's watch this magnificent, infuriating, and utterly captivating disaster unfold. The night is long and the stories are far from over, and as long as there's a signal, I'll be here, your faithful correspondent, from the heart of a dying empire. So stay tuned, the next chapter of our decline is just around the corner, and I have a feeling it's going to be a particularly juicy one. For now, try to get some sleep, and for Jupiter's sake, bar your doors. The house guests are getting restless. And if you see a vendor heading your way, tell him I'm fresh out of silverware, and that my subscription numbers are a far more valuable treasure. Perhaps he'll be so impressed by your good taste that he'll spare your villa. It's a long shot, I know, but in these times you have to take what you can get. So, until our next broadcast, stay safe, or at least try to. And remember, the end of the world is always more entertaining with a captive audience. Don't disappoint me. Subscribe. Your empire needs you, or at least your humble narrator does. Good night, and may the gods, if they're still listening, have mercy on us all. I've been your host, a citizen on the brink, and this has been a broadcast from the edge of oblivion. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. The fate of historical commentary depends on it, and frankly, I could use the validation. It gets lonely at the end of the world. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I hear the sound of approaching hoofbeats. I should probably go and hide the good wine. Until next time, welcome back to another broadcast from the heart of a city that's become a revolving door for ambition and an early grave for the ambitious. Tonight, I want to delve into a particularly Roman pastime, a sport more brutal than any gladiatorial contest, our imperial succession. You see, in a saner world, a new leader is a cause for stability, for hope. In Rome, it's simply the starting pistol for the next civil war. Our emperors changed faster than the price of bread, and usually with more bloodshed, made betting on the future rather difficult. Remember when an emperor was a figure of awe, a semi-divine presence who ruled for decades? Augustus, Trajan, Hadrian, their names felt as permanent as the marble of the Forum. Now, the imperial purple is less a symbol of ultimate power and more a target on one's back. We've entered an age where the life expectancy of an emperor is roughly equivalent to that of a mayfly in a hurricane. It's become a grim sort of joke. You don't ask who the emperor is, you ask who the emperor is this week. The whole bloody carnival really kicked into high gear during what the more optimistic historians are calling the crisis of the 3rd century. A 50-year-long imperial free-for-all that saw more emperors than a brothel sees customers on a festival day. We had the year 238, a particularly vintage year for chaos, which we affectionately called the year of the 6 emperors. 6 in a single year. Most of them didn't last long enough for the mint to get their faces right on the coins. You'd get a new denarius, squint at the profile, and by the time you figured out who it was supposed to be, he was already yesterday's news, probably murdered by his own guards. It was the rise of the barracks emperors, you see. The legions, those pillars of Roman strength, realized they were the ones with the swords, and in a world where might makes right, the man with the most swords gets to be emperor. So, any general with a silver tongue and a willingness to promise his troops a hefty bonus can find himself acclaimed Augustus. The problem is, there's always another general with another legion who thinks he can make a better offer, and so the cycle begins anew. A constant, bloody bidding war for the throne, paid for with the lives of Roman soldiers and the stability of the empire. The Praetorian Guard, our elite imperial bodyguards, were particularly adept at this game. They were the kingmakers and the king-breakers. They once auctioned off the emperorship to the highest bidder, a wealthy senator named Didius Julianus. A bold move, you have to admit. He bought the throne, but he couldn't afford the loyalty that was supposed to come with it. He lasted a mere 66 days before another general, with a much larger army and a much smaller sense of humor, marched on Rome and had him executed. A cautionary tale about the perils of impulse buying. This constant churn of leadership has, shall we say, a destabilizing effect on the empire. It's hard to focus on long-term infrastructure projects or sound fiscal policy when you're constantly looking over your shoulder for the next assassin's blade. The frontiers are neglected, the barbarians grow bolder, and the economy, well, the economy is a shambles. Each new emperor needs to pay off the soldiers who put him in power, so they debase the currency, adding more and more base metal to the silver coins until they're little more than worthless tokens. It's a miracle we're not all bartering with goats and chickens. And the civil wars. Oh, the endless, grinding civil wars. Roman legions, the finest fighting force the world has ever known, turning on each other with a savagery they once reserved for our enemies. Brother against brother, citizen against citizen, all for the sake of putting another short-lived tyrant on a throne he'll barely have time to warm. We're bleeding ourselves dry, hollowing out the very core of our strength. And for what? The privilege of watching another ambitious fool get his moment in the sun before he's inevitably dragged down into the darkness. It's created a culture of cynicism, a deep-seated distrust of any authority. How can you have faith in an emperor when you know he's likely to be replaced before the seasons change? How can you have pride in an empire that's constantly at war with itself? We've become a nation of spectators, watching the bloody drama unfold from the sidelines, hoping the chaos doesn't spill over into our own lives, but it always does. The rising taxes, the worthless currency, the constant threat of violence, it touches everyone. The emperors themselves are a tragicomic parade of arrogance and incompetence. Some are brutish soldiers with no understanding of governance. Others are paranoid schemers who see conspiracies in every shadow. A few are even decent men with good intentions, but they're quickly consumed by the very system they're trying to fix. It's like trying to patch a sinking ship with papyrus. A noble effort, perhaps, but ultimately futile. And the names, oh, the glorious and often ridiculous names. We've had Gordian I, Gordian II, and Gordian III, a veritable dynasty of doom. We've had Pupinus and Balbinus, who sound more like a pair of bickering comedians than co-emperors of Rome. We've had Philip the Arab, who, despite his exotic origins, proved to be just as adept at getting himself killed as any true-born Roman. It's a cast of characters that would be hilarious if their failures weren't so devastating. This constant internal rot is what truly weakens us. The barbarians at the gates are a problem, yes, but they're a symptom, not the disease. The disease is here, in the heart of the empire, in the Senate, in the barracks, in the very soul of Rome. We've forgotten what it means to be Roman. We've traded unity for ambition, stability for chaos, and honor for a few more devalued coins. We are our own worst enemy, the architects of our own demise. And so we find ourselves in this perpetual state of flux, a ship without a captain, tossed on a stormy sea of our own making. We yearn for the strong hand of an Augustus, for the steady guidance of a Marcus Aurelius. But those days are gone, lost to the mists of a more glorious and perhaps more naive past. Now we're left with the Emperor Shuffle, a macabre dance of death where the only certainty is that the music will eventually stop for everyone. It's a strange thing to live in a city that is simultaneously the center of the world and the epicenter of its own destruction. We are surrounded by the monuments of our past greatness, the Colosseum, the Pantheon, the aqueducts that still carry water to our fountains, and yet we are haunted by the ghosts of our present failures. the endless parade of ephemeral emperors who flicker and die like candles in the wind. It's enough to make you want to drink, and believe me, I do, heavily. It's the only way to numb the existential dread, the constant gnawing feeling that we are living on borrowed time, that the foundations of our world are crumbling beneath our very feet. But even in the depths of my wine cup, I can't escape the truth. We are a people adrift, a city in search of a leader who can save us from ourselves, and I fear we will be searching for a very, very long time. But enough of my maudlin ramblings. The point is, this imperial carousel is not just a historical curiosity. It's a threat to our very existence. And it's a story that needs to be told, a warning that needs to be heeded. Which is where you, my dear listeners, come in. You are not just passive observers of this tragicomedy. You are the chroniclers of our decline, the witnesses to our folly. If you believe that the story of our self-inflicted wounds, of our endless cycle of ambition and assassination, is a story worth preserving, then I implore you, do more than just listen. Become a part of this broadcast. Support our desperate attempt to make sense of the senseless. Hit that subscribe button. Let it be a vote of no confidence in our current and likely temporary emperor. Don't let this broadcast become another casualty of our chaotic times. Your subscription is a lifeline, a signal that even as the empire tears itself apart, there are those who are still paying attention, who still care about the fate of Rome. It's a way of ensuring that the lessons of our failures are not lost to the coming darkness. So do it, now, before another emperor gets retired and the ensuing chaos cuts our signal for good. Think of your subscription as an investment in a future where, perhaps, leaders are chosen for their wisdom and not for the size of their army. A future where the imperial purple is a symbol of service, not a death sentence. It's a long shot, I know, but in these dark times, a little bit of hope, however foolish, is all we have. And a lot of subscribers wouldn't hurt either. So join us, become a patron of this Chronicle of Collapse, for in a world of shifting loyalties and fleeting emperors, your subscription is a rock, a foundation upon which we can build a record of our times. Let the Praetorian Guard have their bloody auctions. Let the legions have their fleeting triumphs. We will have the truth, and we will have each other. And who knows, maybe, if our subscriber numbers get high enough, the next aspiring emperor will see more value in our broadcast than in another pointless civil war. A man can dream, can't he? And in the meantime, at least we'll have a good story to tell. So subscribe, for Rome, for history, and for the sake of my sanity. It gets awfully lonely narrating the apocalypse. I've been your host, a citizen who's seen more emperors than he's had hot meals, and this has been another chapter in our ongoing imperial drama. Stay tuned. The next assassination is probably just around the corner, and you won't want to miss it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think I hear a new set of legions marching on the city. I should probably go and see who's in charge this time, or at least find out who to bet on in the ensuing brawl. Good night, and may you outlive the current Augustus. It shouldn't be too difficult. Greetings from the Eternal City, where our wallets are anything but. Tonight let's set aside the usual talk of invading hordes and short-lived emperors and discuss something truly terrifying, the Roman economy. If you think a Visigoth at your door is scary, you clearly haven't tried to buy a loaf of bread recently. We're living in a time of unparalleled financial innovation, where our leaders have mastered the art of making money disappear, mostly from our pockets. Remember the denarius? That beautiful silver coin, a symbol of Roman prosperity, worth a good day's wage for a legionary. You could feel its heft, its value. Now, I have a sack of them I use as a doorstop. Remember when a denarius actually bought something? Now it's just a shiny disk of disappointment, thanks inflation. It's a miracle of imperial alchemy, really. Our emperors have figured out how to turn silver into, well, nothing. The whole charade started as a clever way to fund our extracurricular activities. You know, the endless civil wars, the extravagant lifestyles of emperors who last about as long as a summer festival, and a bureaucracy so bloated it makes a pregnant sow look svelte. The state needed money, and since there was only so much they could pry from our cold, desperate hands through taxes, They started getting creative with the currency. They began mixing a little copper into the silver. Just a touch, you understand, a cost-saving measure. But then that little touch became a heavy hand. Soon our silver coins were mostly bronze, with a thin, unconvincing wash of silver that would rub off by the time you got home from the market. I once saw a merchant test a coin by biting it, and he broke a tooth on the bronze. The coin, of course, was fine, or rather, it was as worthless as it was before, just with a new dent in it. It's not debasement, it's financial diversification. At least, that's what the man from the mint told me before he demanded I pay my taxes in gold. And the inflation. Oh, the glorious galloping inflation. Prices don't rise anymore, they ascend into the heavens. You go to the market in the morning and a chicken costs 100 denarii. By the afternoon it's 200. You have to spend your money the instant you get it, before it loses whatever minuscule value it still possesses. We've become a city of sprinters, racing to the nearest vendor before our wages turn to dust in our hands. It's a wonderful form of exercise, I suppose, a silver lining on a very dark, very worthless cloud. Naturally, the emperors, in their infinite wisdom, decided to solve this problem. The great Diocletian, back in 301, gave us his Edict on Maximum Prices. A brilliant idea, really. He simply outlawed inflation. He set a legal price for everything, from eggs to elephants, and decreed that anyone caught selling for more would face the ultimate penalty. The result? Everything disappeared from the markets. Turns out, merchants would rather not sell their goods at all than sell them at a loss. It was a masterclass in how to create a black market overnight. So now we have the official price which no one honors and the real price which no one can afford. It's a beautifully Roman solution, complex, bureaucratic, and utterly ineffective. It's a system that punishes the honest and rewards the devious. And in a city like Rome, you can imagine which side is winning. The only thing the edict really accomplished was giving tax collectors another excuse to persecute merchants and confiscate their property. Ah, the taxes, the lifeblood of the empire, they say, more like the slow, methodical exsanguination of its citizenry. We are taxed on our land, on our crops, on our livestock. We are taxed on the number of wheels on our carts and the number of slaves in our households. There are sales taxes, inheritance taxes, and a whole host of other creative levies designed to strip us of every last sestertius. I wouldn't be surprised if they started taxing the air we breathe. They'd probably call it a vitality contribution. And who does this mountain of money support? A military that's more interested in proclaiming new emperors than in defending our borders for one. And then there's the bureaucracy. A hydra-headed monster of clerks, officials, and functionaries, each one with a rubber stamp and an insatiable appetite for bribes. They exist only to enforce the ridiculously complex regulations that they themselves create. A perfect, self-perpetuating system of parasitic governance. They produce nothing, they build nothing, and yet they live like kings on the wealth they drain from the rest of us. The result of all this is a slow, grinding poverty that is far more destructive than any barbarian horde. Farmers are abandoning their land because they can't afford to pay the taxes. Skilled artisans are closing their shops because the currency is worthless. The middle class, the very bedrock of Roman society, is being squeezed into oblivion, caught between the crushing weight of the state and the abyss of destitution. We are becoming a society of the very rich and the very poor, with nothing in between. And so, we have come full circle. We started as a city of farmers and soldiers, built on the values of hard work and civic duty. We are ending as a city of beggars and bureaucrats, built on a foundation of worthless currency and suffocating taxes. The empire isn't being conquered, it's going bankrupt. It's a far less glorious end than the poets will have you believe. No epic battles, no heroic last stands, just the quiet, desperate shuffle of a people who have nothing left to give. It's a tragic comedy of epic proportions. We are the wealthiest empire the world has ever known, and yet our people are starving. We control vast territories, and yet we cannot afford to pay our own soldiers. We are the inheritors of a glorious tradition, and yet we are squandering it all on pointless wars and a parasitic state. We are, in short, a joke, and a rather expensive one at that. And as I sit here, contemplating the utter absurdity of it all, I can't help but wonder what the future holds. More inflation? New and more inventive taxes? A complete return to a barter economy? I've already started hoarding wine and olive oil. They hold their value far better than any coin the emperor can mint. It's a sad day when your pantry is a more reliable bank than the imperial treasury. But such are the times we live in. So here we are, adrift in a sea of economic chaos, clinging to the wreckage of our former prosperity. We look to our leaders for solutions, and they give us price controls that don't work and a currency that isn't worth the metal it's stamped on. They tell us to tighten our belts, to make sacrifices for the good of the empire, but our belts are already as tight as they can go, and we have nothing left to sacrifice. But even in this darkness, there is a flicker of something. A morbid curiosity, perhaps, a desire to see how this grand, disastrous experiment ends. And that, my friends, is where you come in. You are not just listeners, you are fellow sufferers, co-conspirators in this grand economic meltdown. And your voice, your support, matters. If you find a grim sort of solidarity in these tales of financial ruin, if you believe that the story of our empty coffers and worthless currency needs to be told, then I urge you, do something about it. If you're one of the few who are still solvent, please subscribe. Every click helps fund our, well, whatever this is. It certainly doesn't pay for bread, but it feeds the spirit. Don't let this broadcast go the way of the silver denarius, debased and forgotten. Your subscription is a protest against the madness, a signal that you haven't given up, that you're still fighting, even if it's just by listening. It's a way of saying that you'd rather invest in this shared story than in another one of the Emperor's shiny discs of disappointment. So click that button. Do it before the tax collectors find a way to levy a broadcast enjoyment fee. Your subscription is a small act of defiance in a world of overwhelming despair. It's a way to create a community of the disillusioned, a network of citizens who know that the real threat isn't the barbarian at the gate, but the tax collector at the door. Join us. Let's build a treasury of subscribers, a vault of solidarity that can't be debased by any emperor. Let the rich have their gold and the state have its worthless bronze. We will have this. We will have this story, and we will have the knowledge that we are not alone in our misery. And who knows, perhaps our community will become a new kind of currency, based not on precious metals, but on shared experience and mutual support. It's a nice thought, isn't it? Probably as fanciful as a stable economy, but a man can dream. So subscribe. It's the soundest investment you can make in these troubled times. I've been your host, a citizen with a net worth that fluctuates with the daily price of wheat, and this has been another look into our glorious decline. Stay tuned, and hide your valuables. The taxman cometh, and he's not taking IOUs. Good night, and may your coffers be fuller than the Emperor's promises. Which, I admit, is not a very high bar. Good evening, my fellow insomniacs, and welcome to another dispatch from our crumbling capital. Tonight I want to talk about our protectors, the pride of the empire, the men who stand between us and the howling wilderness of barbarism, the Roman legions, or at least, what's left of them. The idea is still grand, isn't it? The eagle standard, the disciplined ranks, the unstoppable force that carved out the greatest empire the world has ever seen. It's a beautiful image, and like most beautiful things in this city, it's mostly a memory. Our glorious legions, half of them are Germans we paid too much, and the other half are Romans who haven't been paid at all. What could possibly go wrong? We've outsourced our national defense. It's the ultimate Roman innovation. Hire your enemies to fight your other enemies. It's a wonderfully efficient system, until the mercenaries you hired decide they like your cities better than their paychecks. Or, more accurately, when they realize their paychecks are as worthless as the debased currency they're stamped on. Gone are the days of the citizen soldier, the farmer who would leave his plough to defend the republic. That noble creature has gone the way of affordable housing and honest politicians. Why would any sane Roman citizen sign up for a lifetime of terrible food, brutal discipline, and the high probability of dying in some forgotten swamp? all for the promise of a pension that will never materialize. It's far easier and frankly more lucrative to stay here in Rome and complain about the state of the army, a profession at which you may have noticed, excel. So we fill the ranks with anyone we can find. Goths, Franks, Alans, Vandals. Our legions have become a veritable melting pot of people who just a generation ago we were trying our best to kill. We give them Roman training, Roman equipment, and Roman titles. We call them foederati, our allies, a fancy word for hired help with swords. We pat ourselves on the back for our enlightened policy of inclusion, all the while ignoring the fact that their loyalty extends precisely as far as our ability to pay them. And that ability, my friends, is shrinking by the day. The imperial treasury is emptier than a philosopher's stomach, so when the pay is late, as it often is, our brave defenders have a tendency to get creative. Sometimes they just desert. Sometimes they turn to banditry, preying on the very people they're supposed to be protecting, and sometimes, in a delightful twist of irony, they go on strike, refusing to fight until their demands are met. I once saw a whole cohort of Germanic cavalry stage a sit-in outside a governor's palace. It was a novel approach to collective bargaining. The real problem, though, is when they get ambitious. When a charismatic barbarian general, decked out in Roman finery and given a fancy Latin name like Stilicho or Ricimer, realizes that he's the one with the army, and the emperor is just a pasty fellow in a palace with a penchant for expensive robes. Suddenly, our ally becomes the power behind the throne, the puppet master pulling the strings of the Western Empire. They appoint emperors, depose them, marry their daughters to them. It's a messy, incestuous, and deeply embarrassing state of affairs. We are no longer masters in our own house. We are living under the protection of a security firm that has a vested interest in our continued weakness. They need the threat of outside barbarians to justify their exorbitant fees, but they can't let us get too strong, lest we decide we don't need them anymore. It's a delicate balance, and they walk it with the grace of a drunken bear. We're not an empire anymore. We're a protection racket, and we're the ones paying. And what of the actual Romans left in the army? They're a disgruntled, demoralized bunch. They see the foreign mercenaries getting better pay, better treatment, and more respect. They're commanded by generals who are more interested in plotting their next move on the political stage than in military strategy. They're sent into battle against their own countrymen in an endless series of civil wars, all to prop up some fleeting, forgettable emperor. It's no wonder their morale is lower than a snake's belly in a ditch. The legionary of today is not the proud soldier of yesteryear. He's a sullen, resentful wage slave, more likely to mutiny over a lack of wine than to charge heroically into the fray. He sees the empire for what it is, a decaying corpse, picked over by vultures in fancy uniforms. And he's determined to get his piece before there's nothing left but bones. Can you blame him? Loyalty is a luxury, and in these trying times most of us can barely afford bread. This transformation of our army is perhaps the most telling sign of our decline. An empire is only as strong as its ability to project force, to defend its borders and enforce its will. Our ability to do that is now entirely dependent on the whims of men who do not share our heritage, our values, or our interests. We have, in effect, subcontracted our own survival, and the contractors, it seems, are starting to think about a hostile takeover. The constant demand for resources to fund this bloated, unreliable military is crippling us. The taxes are unbearable, the land is fallow, and the people are restless. We are sacrificing everything that makes life worth living in order to pay for an army that is, at best, a temporary solution, and at worst, an existential threat. It's a fool's bargain, a deal with the devil that we are losing badly. And so the very institution that was the engine of our expansion has become the engine of our destruction. The legions that once conquered the world are now carving it up for their own personal gain. The eagle's standard, that once proud symbol of Roman might, is now just a rallying point for another pretender to the throne, another would-be emperor marching on Rome to claim his prize. It's a tragic, ironic, and deeply Roman end to a long and bloody story. But even as the foundations of our military might crumble, even as the legions turn on themselves and their masters, there is a story here that needs to be told. a story of how a great power can rot from the inside out, how the very source of its strength can become the instrument of its downfall. It is a cautionary tale, a lesson written in blood and betrayal. And you, my dear listeners, are the ones who can ensure it is not forgotten. If you believe that this chronicle of our military misadventures is worth preserving, if you find a dark sort of enlightenment in these tales of our unreliable protectors, then I ask you, do more than just listen. Join this broadcast. Become a part of this last desperate stand against the encroaching silence. Help us keep the virtual legions marching. Like and subscribe. Your subscription is not just a click. It's a signal that you understand the true nature of our predicament. It's a vote for telling the truth, however ugly it may be. It's a way of ensuring that the story of our self-inflicted wounds, of our misplaced trust, and our fading strength is preserved for posterity. So do it, now, before our mercenary friends decide that this broadcast frequency is a valuable piece of real estate and seize it for themselves. Think of your subscription as a new kind of legion, a cohort of the concerned, a maniple of the morbidly curious, a force that can't be bought off with debased currency or promises of plunder, a force that is loyal not to some ephemeral emperor, but to the story itself. In a world of wavering loyalties, let your subscription be a rock of certainty. Join us. Let the generals play their deadly games. Let the mercenaries haggle over their contracts. We will be here, bearing witness, recording the folly for all to see. We will build an army of subscribers, a legion of listeners that will outlast the crumbling walls of this city. And who knows, maybe our numbers will grow so large that even the most ambitious general will have to take notice. It's a long shot, but what else do we have? So, as the sounds of our city's slow demise echo in the night, I urge you, don't just be a bystander. Be a participant. Subscribe, like, share. Let your voice be heard in the digital forum, for in the end, when the last Eagle standard has fallen and the last legion has disbanded, it will be the stories that remain, and ours, my friends, is one for the ages. I've been your host, a citizen who trusts a barbarian with a sword about as far as he can throw the Colosseum, and this has been another broadcast from the front lines of Imperial collapse. Stay tuned, and if you hear the tramp of marching feet, pray they're on your side, or at least that they've been paid recently. Good night, and may your defenses be stronger than ours. They certainly can't be any weaker. Good evening, if such a term still has any meaning. This is your faithful correspondent, broadcasting from a city that is currently undergoing a rather aggressive and unscheduled urban renewal program, courtesy of our Visigothic guests. The Eternal City. It was a good marketing slogan, wasn't it? Had a great run. For 800 years Rome was untouchable, an inviolable sanctuary, the heart of the world. Then came Alaric and his Visigoths. Turns out, eternal has an expiration date. Who knew? The air tonight is a festive mix of smoke, fear, and the distinct aroma of burning history. I must say, for a bunch of so-called barbarians, they have a remarkable eye for real estate. They seem particularly taken with the gardens of Sallust, which are now providing a lovely warm glow against the night sky. The owner, I hear, was less than thrilled with the renovations. It's a tragedy, truly. I always found his garden parties to be dreadfully dull. It's the sheer, unadulterated shock of it all that's so invigorating. We all knew things were bad. The Goths were at the gates again. Alaric was making his usual demands, gold, land, a fancy title. The emperor, safely tucked away in Ravenna, was making his usual counter-offer, insults and defiance. It was a familiar political theatre. We, the citizens of Rome, were the weary audience, expecting the usual dreary third act where some last-minute deal is struck, and the barbarians go away, grumbling but paid. This time, however, the script had a new ending. On the 24th of August, in the year of our Lord 410, the Salarian gate was opened, not stormed, not battered down, opened. By whom? Some say it was a slave, promised freedom. Others whisper it was a servant, angry at his master. It doesn't really matter. The point is, the locks that had held 4 centuries were undone, and the unthinkable became the undeniable. The wolves were inside the fold. And what a pack of wolves they are! They poured into the city, a torrent of hairy, leather-clad disillusionment, and you know, for the first few hours there was a strange, almost comical disbelief. People peered out of their windows, much as you would at a particularly loud parade. Are those Goths in the Forum? Well, I never. The reality of the situation took a while to sink in. It was only when they started setting fire to things and carting off your neighbor's silver that the gravity of the situation became apparent. For 3 days they have been at it. It's not a mindless slaughter, as some of the more dramatic souls are wailing. Alaric, in a gesture that I'm sure he considers magnanimous, has ordered his men to spare the churches of St. Peter and St. Paul. So, if you can make it there, you might be safe. For the rest of us, it's a city-wide treasure hunt, and we are the treasure chests. And the Goths are very, very good at cracking us open. I saw a senator, a man whose family traces its lineage back to the Republic, trying to reason with a Goth who was attempting to make off with a life-size marble statue of his ancestor. The senator was explaining its historical significance. The Goth, who probably didn't speak a word of Latin, just grunted, pushed the senator aside, and rolled the statue out the door. I suppose it will make a fine addition to some mud hut in Dacia. With cultural exchange, you see. The psychological blow is far more devastating than any physical damage. Every shattered statue, every looted villa, every scream in the night is a testament to a broken promise. The promise of the Pax Romana, the promise of Roman invincibility. The very foundations of our world have been shaken. The idea that to be Roman was to be safe, to be protected by the gods and the legions. It's all gone up in smoke, literally. And the stories, oh, the stories that are already spreading through the city are worth the price of admission alone. I heard of one wealthy matron, Proba, who, in a fit of Christian charity, opened her palace to the poor, only to have them lead the Goths right to her, hoping for a reward. The Goths, apparently unimpressed by this display of civic-minded betrayal, took her valuables anyway. There's a lesson in there somewhere, I'm sure. Probably something about the perils of philanthropy. The blame game has already started, of course. The pagans are blaming the Christians, saying the old gods have abandoned us because we abandoned them. The Christians are blaming the pagans, saying this is a divine punishment for our sins and our lingering idolatry. I, for one, am blaming the emperor, Honorius, who was reportedly more concerned with the fate of his favorite chicken, which he had named Rome, than with the fate of the actual city. You can't make this stuff up. So, the city that once held the world in its thrall is now at the mercy of a band of semi-literate Germans. It's a humbling experience. It really puts your own problems in perspective. My leaky roof and my mounting debts suddenly seem rather trivial compared to the fact that the haughty Lamiani is on fire, and a man with a horned helmet is trying to barter my prize-winning amphora for a hunk of questionable-looking cheese. But even in the midst of this chaos, this utter, soul-crushing humiliation, there is a strange sort of clarity. We are seeing the world for what it truly is, an unpredictable, violent, and often absurd place. The thin veneer of civilization has been stripped away, and we are left with the raw, brutal truth of human nature. It's not pretty, but it is in its own way fascinating. And I know you, my loyal listeners, are as fascinated as I am. You are huddled in your cellars, hiding under your beds, listening to my voice cut through the sounds of your world ending. You are the witnesses to history, the audience for the final, tragic act of the Roman Empire. And for that, you deserve a front row seat. If this hasn't broken your spirit, if you still have a spark of that old Roman defiance flickering in your soul, then do something. Don't just cower in the darkness. Smash that subscribe button now. Let your click be an act of rebellion, a declaration that even as our city burns, our story will not be extinguished. Your subscription is a refusal to let the Goths have the last word. It's a way of saying that even if they take our gold, our statues, and our dignity, they cannot take our voice. It's a way to build a new kind of city, a community of listeners, a digital Rome that cannot be sacked or burned. So do it, now, before a Visigoth decides my broadcasting equipment would look better on his mantelpiece. Think of it as a down payment on the future of historical commentary, a way to ensure that when the dust settles and the historians start writing about these dark days, your voice will be counted among the survivors, the witnesses, the ones who were there when the eternal city proved to be all too mortal. In a world of broken promises, let your subscription be a promise kept, a promise to listen, to remember, and to endure. Join us. Let Alaric have his triumph. Let the Emperor have his chickens. We will have this. We will have this shared chronicle of our own spectacular, awe-inspiring, and frankly long overdue downfall. We will be the ones who tell the tale of how Rome fell, not with a whimper, but with a bang, a crash, and the sound of 1,000 citizens all asking, "What in Jupiter's name is happening?" And who knows, maybe future generations will look back on this moment, not as the end of Rome, but as the beginning of something new, something, well, something different at least. And they will have you to thank for it. You, the founding subscribers of the post-apocalyptic media landscape. It has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? I've been your host, a citizen who is seriously reconsidering his investment in urban real estate, and this has been a live broadcast from the sack of Rome. Stay tuned. The third day is just beginning, and I hear the Goths are planning a grand finale. It's sure to be a spectacle, and I, for one, will be here to bring you all the gory details. Good night, and may the looter who finds you be in a merciful mood. It's the best we can hope for now. A very warm welcome to another broadcast from what's left of Rome. And I do mean warm. The city has adopted a new, rather aggressive form of central heating, courtesy of our various uninvited guests. The air's always got that faint smell of burning. Is it a barbarian raid, or just another one of our neighbors' villas collapsing from sheer neglect? Hard to tell these days. It adds a certain smoky ambiance to life in the eternal city, a permanent ashen filter on the setting sun. Fire, of course, is nothing new to Rome. We've had our great fires before. Nero, bless his artistic soul, gave us a spectacular one, but that was different. That was a Roman fire, a family affair. We rebuilt grander than before. This new trend of fires, the ones started by Goths and Vandals, they feel different. They have a certain malicious intent to them. They're not just clearing land for new projects, they're trying to erase us. Alaric's little visit back in 410 was a masterclass in pyromania. He had a particular fondness for the homes of the wealthy. The gardens of Sallust, a treasure of art and luxury, went up like a torch. A magnificent sight, if you could ignore the fact that it was a priceless piece of our heritage being reduced to charcoal. For 3 days the city was a patchwork of infernos, each one a beacon of our failure, a funeral pyre for our pride. You see, a fire in Rome isn't just about burning wood and stone, it's about burning history. We are a city of records, of libraries, of accumulated knowledge. Every time a grand house or a public building goes up in flames, a piece of our past turns to ash. Deeds, contracts, family histories, philosophical treatises, gone. It's a wonderfully effective way of simplifying bureaucracy, I suppose. Hard to argue about property lines when the property, the lines, and the records office have all been incinerated. And then, just when we thought we'd seen the worst of it, along came the Vandals in 455. Now, the Vandals, despite their name, were surprisingly methodical. They weren't as keen on random arson as Alaric's boys. They were more interested in a systematic, 2-week-long liquidation of our city's assets. But fire was still a part of their toolkit, a convenient way to open a locked door, or to express their displeasure with a lack of portable. The psychological effect of living under the constant threat of fire is corrosive. You start to look at your possessions differently. That heirloom tapestry, a fire hazard. That extensive library of scrolls, kindling. You develop a certain detachment from your material surroundings. It's the only way to stay sane. You learn to live with the knowledge that everything you own could be gone in an instant, reduced to a pile of smoking rubble. It's a very stoic existence, thrust upon us by the least philosophical people imaginable. The chaos of a fire during a sacking is a special kind of hell. The usual systems break down. The vigiles, our city's firefighters, are either hiding, dead, or have joined the looters. There's no one to organize a bucket brigade. You're on your own. It's you, your family, and a desperate, frantic scramble to save whatever you can before the flames lick at your heels. And in the background, the triumphant shouts of the men who started the blaze. It's a uniquely Roman experience. We are becoming a city of ghosts, haunted by the specters of what we once were. We walk past the blackened shells of once great buildings, the skeletal remains of temples and bathhouses. We breathe in the dust of our own history. The air is thick with the ghosts of burned books, the silent screams of incinerated art. It's a constant, suffocating reminder of our vulnerability, of our fall from grace. The smell of despair has a very specific scent. It's a mixture of cold ash, damp rot, and the lingering, acrid tang of burnt dreams. It gets into your clothes, your hair, your food. You can never truly escape it. It's the perfume of a dying city, a miasma of failure that hangs over us like a shroud. Sometimes, on a quiet night, you can almost hear the city weeping, or maybe that's just the wind whistling through 1,000 shattered windows. And the loss of records. It's a slow, creeping amnesia. We are losing our memory, our identity. Who are we if not the sum of our history? And what is our history if not the words written on scrolls that are now feeding the flames? We are becoming a people untethered from our past, adrift in a sea of present misery. It's a terrifying thought, to be forgotten, to be erased, to have our story end not with a grand finale, but with the quiet hiss of embers. But even as the flames lick at the edges of our civilization, there is a stubborn refusal to be extinguished. We are still here, we are still Romans, and we still have stories to tell. Stories of the fires, of the fear, of the quiet acts of heroism and the loud acts of cowardice. Stories that deserve to be heard, to be remembered, to be passed on. And that, my friends, is where you come in. If you believe that the story of our fiery ordeal should not be lost to the ashes of time, if you feel a connection to this city, even in its darkest hour, then I implore you, do more than just listen. Fan the flames of this broadcast. Don't let this historical inferno fade. Subscribe for more fiery tales. Your subscription is a defiant spark in the encroaching darkness. Let your click be a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a refusal to let our story end in smoke and ruin. Every subscription is a brick in a new kind of Rome, a city built not of marble and stone, but of shared memory and collective witness, a city that no fire can touch. So do it, now, before the next conflagration takes us off the air for good. Think of it as an act of preservation. While the barbarians are busy burning our libraries, you can help build a new one. A library of voices, of stories, of experiences. A library that will outlast the flames and serve as a beacon for future generations. In a world where so much is being lost, your subscription is an act of creation. It is an investment in the future of the past. Join us. Let the fires rage. Let the monuments fall. We will be here, in the heart of the inferno, broadcasting the truth. We will be the keepers of the flame, the guardians of the story, and with your help our voice will rise above the roar of the blaze, a clear, unwavering signal in a world gone mad. We will not be silenced. We will not be erased. And who knows? Perhaps one day, when the fires have died down and the smoke has cleared, future generations will sift through the rubble of our civilization and find this broadcast, this community of listeners, and they will know that even in the face of utter destruction, we did not despair, we did not surrender, we subscribed. I've been your host, a citizen who now sleeps with a bucket of water by his bed, and this has been another report from the burning heart of the Empire. Stay tuned, the night is long and the city is full of flammable material. It promises to be a spectacular evening. Good night, and may your roof be the last one on your street to catch fire. It's the Roman way of saying sweet dreams. A pleasant evening to all of you still clinging to the concept of pleasantry. Welcome back to the only broadcast brave enough, or perhaps foolish enough, to chronicle the slow momentum implosion of our great empire. We've talked about the barbarians at the gates. Tonight, let's talk about the ones who hold the keys, the enemy within. The smiling neighbor who's been measuring your villa for new fur-clad owners. Betrayal. It's the new Roman pastime, and business, my friends, is booming. The barbarians are a convenient scapegoat, aren't they? Big, hairy, and easy to blame. But let me tell you a secret the emperors don't want you to know. The Goths didn't just wander up to the Salarian gate in 410 and find it open by magic. Someone on the inside, someone with a grudge, a purse full of barbarian gold, or perhaps just a profound sense of ennui, unlocked it for them. We weren't conquered from without, we were sold out from within. You never knew if the man next to you was loyal to Rome or just waiting for the barbarians to offer him a better tax deal. Trust issues. We invented them. It's a game of whispers now. That senator giving a rousing speech about Roman valor, he's probably hedging his bets, sending secret envoys to the Gothic camp. That tax collector taking your last denarius, he's lining his own pockets before the whole rotten structure comes crashing down. It's a city of rats, and the ship is sinking fast. And our generals. Oh, our glorious, ambitious generals. They are the true artists of betrayal. They fight each other with more passion than they've ever shown against a foreign foe. A victory against the Franks is a minor news item. A victory against a rival Roman general in a bloody civil war, that gets you a triumph and a short-lived reign as emperor before your own second-in-command gets any bright ideas. They're not defending the empire, they're carving it up like a holiday goose. Take the great Stilicho, a vandal in Roman service of all things. He spent years fending off Alaric and his Goths, the one man who seemed to have a handle on the situation, and what was his reward? A smear campaign, whispers of treason from the snivelling eunuchs in the imperial court, and ultimately an executioner's blade. We murdered our most competent defender out of sheer paranoid jealousy. After that, inviting Alaric in to sack the place was practically a foregone conclusion. It was a masterstroke of self-sabotage. The corruption is so deep, so pervasive, it's become the very air we breathe. Officials buy their positions, then spend their tenure extorting enough money to recoup their investment and fund a lavish retirement. They see the empire not as a sacred trust, but as a temporary opportunity for plunder. They are the real looters of Rome, and they've been at it far longer than any Goth. At least the Goths are honest about their intentions. And can you blame the common citizen for his apathy, for his willingness to side with the invaders? For generations he has been bled dry by a rapacious tax system, designed to fund endless wars and a bloated, useless bureaucracy. The taxman is a far more terrifying sight than any barbarian. The barbarian might burn your house down, but the taxman will take your house, your land, your children, and then tax you for the privilege of being destitute. So when a vandal chieftain comes along and says, "Join me and you'll pay half the taxes you pay to Rome," it starts to sound like a pretty good deal. We've reached a point where the barbarians are offering a more attractive form of governance than our own so-called civilization. It's the ultimate indictment of our failure. We're not just being defeated, we're being out-competed in the marketplace of political loyalty. The breakdown of trust is absolute. It poisons every interaction. Every business deal is fraught with the possibility of treachery. Every friendship is shadowed by the suspicion of opportunism. We have become a society of individuals, each one looking out for himself, his family, his own survival. The concept of the common good, of civic duty, of Romanitas, has become a bitter joke, a relic of a bygone era. It's a tragic melodrama played out on the grandest stage in the world. The noble emperor, isolated and impotent in his palace in Ravenna, the scheming courtiers whispering poison in his ear, the ambitious general torn between duty and self-interest, the downtrodden populace caught in the middle just trying to survive. It has all the elements of a great play, except the actors are real, the swords are sharp, and the ending is not in doubt. We have sown the seeds of our own destruction. We have nurtured them with our greed, our ambition, and our endless capacity for self-deception. We blame the Goths, the Vandals, the Huns, but they are merely the reapers, harvesting a crop that we planted ourselves. They are the symptom, not the disease. The disease is here, in our hearts, in our minds, in the very soul of Rome. And so we live in this atmosphere of quiet dread, of watchful suspicion. We eye our neighbors, we question our leaders, we doubt our own instincts. The enemy is not just at the gates. He is in the Senate, in the barracks, in the marketplace. He is us. We are the architects of our own downfall, the willing accomplices in our own demise. And the tragedy is, we know it. We just don't know how to stop it. But even as we watch our world unravel, even as we navigate this labyrinth of lies and betrayals, there is a story here that demands to be told. A story of how a great power can be brought down, not by foreign armies, but by the weaknesses of its own character. It is a cautionary tale for the ages, a lesson in the fragility of trust and the corrosive power of self-interest. And you, my friends, are the ones who can ensure it is heard. If you are as captivated by this tragic melodrama as I am, if you find a grim sort of fascination in the spectacle of our self-immolation, then I urge you, do not remain a silent spectator. Join this congregation of the disillusioned. Please subscribe. Your subscription is a vote for the truth, however ugly it may be. It is a signal that you are not afraid to look into the abyss, to confront the uncomfortable realities of our time. Don't let this broadcast be another casualty of our internal decay, another voice silenced by the prevailing chaos. Your click is an act of defiance, a refusal to be complicit in the silence. It is a way of building a new kind of community, one based not on the shifting sands of political loyalty, but on a shared commitment to bearing witness. So, do it, now, before the man in the next room sells my broadcasting equipment for a bottle of cheap wine. Think of it as joining a new kind of Roman legion, one dedicated not to conquering foreign lands, but to conquering the truth, a legion of listeners, united not by a common standard, but by a common understanding of our predicament. In a world where loyalty is a commodity, let your subscription be a priceless gift. Join us. Let the traitors have their 30 pieces of silver. Let the corrupt officials have their ill-gotten gains. We will have something far more valuable. We will have the story, the whole unvarnished and deeply human story of our fall, and we will have the satisfaction of knowing that we told it, that we did not let it be forgotten. And who knows, perhaps in the telling we can find some small measure of redemption, some understanding of how we came to this sorry pass, and perhaps, just perhaps, future generations will learn from our mistakes. It's a slim hope, I know, but in these dark times, slim hopes are all we have, and a growing subscriber list wouldn't hurt either. I've been your host, a citizen who's starting to think the barbarians might have a point, and this has been another look into the dark heart of a dying empire. Stay tuned. The next betrayal is always just around the corner, and you won't want to miss the fallout. Good night, and trust no one. It's the only sane advice I can offer. A very good evening to you, assuming your neighborhood hasn't been designated as a barbarian-friendly zone tonight. Welcome to another broadcast from the heart of a city that's running on fumes, cheap wine, and a dwindling supply of gallows humor. We often talk of the grand sweep of history, of emperors and armies, of sacks and betrayals. But tonight, I want to talk about something far more intimate, far more terrifying. Tuesday, or how to get through an average day in a collapsing civilization. You wake up not to the gentle rays of Sol Invictus, but to a nagging worry in the pit of your stomach, a worry that today might be the day the aqueduct finally gives up the ghost. My biggest concern this morning was finding clean water. Then the Visigoths showed up. My priorities shifted, slightly. It's a constant, wearying calculus of survival. What's the most pressing existential threat in this particular moment? The Vandals at the gate? Or the fact that the grain shipment from Africa is once again suspiciously late? The food shortages are a particularly delightful feature of our new Roman lifestyle. Remember the Annunana, the grain dole, that glorious institution that kept the masses fed and placated? Now it's more of a suggestion. The shipments are unreliable, the warehouses are often empty, and the officials in charge are more corrupt than a week-old fish. You're more likely to get a lecture on civic duty than a loaf of bread. The black market, of course, is thriving. If you've got gold, you can eat like a king. If you've got the emperor's new currency, you can starve, but with a pocketful of worthless, shiny discs. And the infrastructure. Oh, the magnificent crumbling infrastructure. The roads that once carried legions to the ends of the earth are now so potholed they could swallow a baggage cart whole. The great sewers, the cloaca maxima, are backing up in places, lending a certain earthy aroma to some of the finer neighborhoods. The public baths, those centers of Roman social life, are often closed due to a lack of fuel to heat the water. We are a city slowly returning to a more natural state, by which I mean filthy, smelly, and inconvenient. There's a constant low-level fear that hums beneath the surface of daily life. The fear of random violence, of being in the wrong place at the wrong time when a brawl breaks out between rival factions of mercenaries. The fear of the press gangs, rounding up able-bodied men for another pointless war. The fear of the tax collector, who operates with the subtlety and compassion of a hungry wolf. You learn to walk with your head down, to avoid eye contact, to make yourself as small and insignificant as possible. It's a city of ghosts, even before the barbarians arrive. And the curfews. Oh, the endless, arbitrary curfews. The city gates slam shut at dusk, trapping everyone inside with their anxieties and their increasingly unfriendly neighbors. The streets, once teeming with life, become silent, deserted canyons, ruled by the watchman and the occasional stray dog. It's a city under siege, not from a foreign army, but from its own paranoia. We are prisoners in our own homes, locked in by the very authorities who are supposed to protect us. The mundane horrors are what really grind you down. It's not the dramatic, fiery sacks that are the worst part of it. It's the slow, inexorable decay. It's the knowledge that things are not going to get better. It's the wearing, soul-crushing effort of simply trying to maintain a semblance of normalcy in a world that has gone completely and utterly insane. It's trying to teach your children to read when the schools are closed and the libraries are being used as barracks. It's trying to celebrate a religious festival when the temples are crumbling and the priests are more interested in politics than piety. We are all living on borrowed time, and the interest rates are astronomical. Every day is a small victory, a temporary reprieve from the inevitable. You learn to find joy in the smallest of things. A day without a riot, a meal that doesn't consist entirely of turnips, a moment of quiet in the midst of the chaos. These are the new luxuries of the Roman elite. Forget silken spices. I'll take a functioning sewer and a well-guarded granary. And the rumors, the city thrives on them. Whispers of a new barbarian horde massing on the frontier, tales of a miraculous victory by a general no one's ever heard of, stories of the emperor's latest bizarre pronouncement. The truth is a rare and precious commodity, so we make do with a steady diet of speculation and fear-mongering. It's our own homegrown form of entertainment, a tragicomedy played out in the whispers of the marketplace and the graffiti on the walls. We have become experts in the art of making do. We patch our own roofs, we filter our own water, we barter with our neighbors for the things we need. We are a city of resourceful, resilient, and deeply cynical people. We have seen it all, we have heard it all, and we have survived it all. So far. But with each passing day, the cracks in the facade grow wider. The foundations groan a little louder, and the feeling that we are living on the edge of a precipice becomes more and more. It's a strange, surreal existence, to be living through the end of the world in slow motion. You find yourself in these absurd situations, like haggling over the price of moldy olives while the sounds of a distant battle echo through the streets, or worrying about your daughter's dowry when you're not even sure there will be a city for her to get married in. It's the collision of the mundane and the apocalyptic that is the true hallmark of our time. And yet, even in the midst of this decay, this despair, there is a story of human endurance, of black humor, of the stubborn refusal to simply lie down and die. It is the story of the ordinary citizen, the unsung hero of this epic tragedy, and it is a story that you, my friends, are a part of. If you find a grim sort of camaraderie in these tales of daily survival, if you believe that the story of our mundane struggles is as important as the story of our grand defeats, then I urge you, do not let this broadcast fade away. Support our ongoing survival guide. Like and subscribe. Your support is a lifeline, a signal that we are not alone in this struggle. Your subscription is a defiant act of community in a city that is tearing itself apart. It is a way of saying that even as our infrastructure crumbles, we can build a new kind of connection, a new kind of forum. It is a way of preserving the stories of our time, the small human details that will be lost in the grand narratives of the historians. So do it, now, before the next food riot takes out my broadcasting antenna. Think of it as a contribution to a collective memory, a way to ensure that future generations will know not just how the Roman Empire fell, but how the Roman people lived through it, how we coped, how we laughed, how we endured. In a world of uncertainty, your subscription is a certainty, a commitment to the power of our shared story. Join us. Let the emperors and the generals have their monuments. We will have this chronicle of the everyday, this testament to the resilience of the human spirit, and when the dust of our fallen empire has settled, it will be these stories, these small human truths, that will truly endure. And who knows, maybe our little survival guide will be of some use to future civilizations when they find themselves in a similar predicament. A sort of what to expect when your empire's expecting to collapse. It's a niche market, I admit, but a valuable one, so subscribe, for the sake of posterity, and for the sake of my own sanity. It's nice to know someone's listening. I've been your host, a citizen who's getting far too good at identifying edible weeds, and this has been another chapter in our guide to the apocalypse. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and for the love of the gods, boil your water. Good night, and may your larder be full and your neighbors be friendly, at least for tonight. A very good evening to those of you who haven't yet booked passage on a ship heading east. For the rest of us, welcome to another broadcast from the city that our betters are abandoning faster than a sinking trireme. There's a new fashion among the wealthy and powerful of Rome. It's not a particular vintage of wine or a new style of mosaic. It's a sudden, passionate, and deeply urgent interest in the cultural attractions of Constantinople. The exodus has begun. It started as a trickle, a few forward-thinking senators sending their families and a few chests of gold to their eastern villas for an extended holiday. Now it's a veritable flood. Funny how all the senators suddenly developed a keen interest in Constantinople's cultural attractions. Must be the climate, or perhaps it's the fact that their walls are a bit sturdier and their barbarians are, for the moment, someone else's problem. You can see the signs everywhere. Grand villas on the Esquiline Hill, once the epicenters of Roman society, now shuttered and quiet. Their owners have left behind a skeleton crew of servants with vague instructions to keep an eye on things until they return. We all know they're not coming back. They've taken their gold, their silks, their Greek sculptures, and their well-educated slaves, and they've fled to the safety of the Bosphorus. It's a classic case of rats deserting a sinking ship. Except these rats are dressed in purple-hemmed togas and are taking all the cheese with them. They are the ones who profited most from the empire in its glory days, and now, at the first sign of real trouble, they are the first to run. It leaves the rest of us, the common clay of Rome, to plug the leaks and face the storm, a task made all the more difficult by the fact that they've also taken most of the bucket. This brain drain, as some of the more learned citizens are calling it, is gutting the city. We're not just losing our wealthy patrons, we're losing our best engineers, our most skilled administrators, our scholars, our doctors. Anyone with the means and the foresight is getting out while the getting is good. It's a vote of no confidence in the future of the West, cast not with a ballot, but with the sails of a fast-moving ship. The Eastern Empire, that new Rome, has become a beacon of hope for the rich and a symbol of resentment for the rest of us. They have a stable government, a full treasury, and an army that actually gets paid on time. They look upon us, their poor, chaotic Western cousins, with a mixture of pity and contempt. They send us strongly worded letters of support and the occasional token donation, all while poaching our best and brightest. And the resentment here, oh, it's a palpable thing. You can feel it in the air, thick and heavy as the summer heat. We, the people who are left behind, are the ones who have to deal with the consequences of their cowardice. We are the ones who have to face the food shortages, the crumbling infrastructure, the ever-present threat of violence. We are the ones who have to pay the crushing taxes to support a state that can no longer protect us, a state that has been abandoned by its own elite. It's a betrayal on a grand scale, a quiet, orderly betrayal conducted with all the decorum and legal paperwork that our civilization can muster. They're not traitors in the traditional sense. They haven't joined the enemy. They've simply left. They've washed their hands of us, of Rome, of the 800 years of history that made their families great. They've chosen personal safety over civic duty, comfort over courage. And who can blame them, really? If you had a choice between a crumbling villa in a city under constant threat and a brand new palace in a thriving metropolis, which would you choose? It's the logical choice, the rational choice, and that, perhaps, is the most damning indictment of all, that the only logical thing left to do is to abandon Rome. The city is becoming a hollowed-out shell of its former self. The grand public buildings are still here, but they feel like monuments to a bygone era. The Forum is less a center of imperial power and more a gathering place for beggars and gossips. The Senate still meets, but it's a shadow of its former self, a collection of second-rate politicians and the stubborn few who are too old, too poor, or too foolish to leave. We are living in a city of ghosts, haunted by the memory of what we once were and the specter of what we are becoming. A backwater, a ruin, a tourist attraction for wealthy Easterners who want to see the quaint, crumbling remains of the original Rome. It's a humiliating prospect, and one that feels more and more inevitable with each passing day. And so, we who remain are left to pick up the pieces. We are the custodians of a dying legacy, the caretakers of a magnificent ruin. We are the ones who will have to face the final, messy, and inglorious end, and we will do it with a uniquely Roman blend of cynicism, resilience, and dark, dark humor, because what else is there to do? Weep? The aqueducts are too unreliable for that. But even as our city empties out, even as the best of us flee for greener, safer pastures, there is a story being written here. A story of those who stayed, those who endured, those who refused to give up on the idea of Rome, even as it crumbled around them. It is a story of defiance, of stubbornness, of a love for a city that is by all rational measures no longer lovable. And you, my friends, are a part of that story. If you're not planning a hasty exit, if you, like me, are either too stubborn or too poor to leave, then I implore you, join our little community of the abandoned. Please subscribe to our channel. Let your subscription be a declaration that you have not given up, that you are still here, that you are still Roman, in the truest sense of the word. Don't let this broadcast be another resource drained from our beleaguered city. Your click is an act of investment in our shared future, however uncertain it may be. It is a way of saying that Rome is not just a collection of buildings and a gaggle of wealthy senators. It is an idea, a community, a story. And that story is worth saving. So do it, now, before the last ship sails for Constantinople. Think of it as a census of the faithful, a roll call of those who refuse to let the spirit of Rome die, even as its body withers. Let the elites have their safe harbor. We will have each other. We will have this chronicle of our struggles, our fears, our small daily acts of heroism. And in the end, whose story will be more compelling? The story of the ones who fled, or the story of the ones who stayed and faced the fire? Join us. Let us build a new kind of Senate, a Senate of subscribers, a forum of listeners dedicated to preserving the memory of our city. Let us show the world that even in our darkest hour, the voice of Rome will not be silenced. For as long as one of us remains, as long as one of us is willing to tell the tale, Rome is not truly lost. And who knows, maybe our story will inspire others. Maybe it will serve as a reminder that a civilization is not just its elite, it is its people, all of its people, the ones who run and the ones who stay, the ones who build and the ones who are left to watch it all fall down. So, subscribe, for the sake of those who remain and for the sake of the story that only we can tell. I've been your host, a citizen who's starting to see the appeal of a quiet farm in the countryside. And this has been another look at the slow, stately exodus from our once great city. Stay tuned, and if you happen to see a senator trying to sneak his statues onto a cargo ship, do me a favor and trip him. It won't solve our problems, but it might make you feel better. Good night, and may your foundations be stronger than ours. A very good evening to what's left of the Western Roman Empire, and to the men who are currently running it into the ground. Welcome to the final act of our long and increasingly ludicrous imperial drama. We've reached the point in the play where the plot makes no sense. The main actors have forgotten their lines, and the stagehands are openly dictating the action from the wings. The illusion of control is a powerful thing, and in Rome it's the only thing we have left. The Emperor, the Augustus, the Pontifex Maximus, such grand titles. They evoke images of power, of authority, of a man who holds the fate of millions in his hands. The reality, my friends, is somewhat less impressive. Our emperors were basically highly decorated mascots, nice robes, absolutely no actual power. It was quite the show, if you like tragic comedies. They sat on the throne, they issued decrees written by their Germanic bodyguards, and they tried their best to look imperial, while the real power lay elsewhere. And where did that power lie? In the hands of men with names like Ricimer, a Suabian Visigoth, a barbarian general who held the title Magister Militum, Master of the Soldiers. A more accurate title would have been Master of the Emperors. For 16 years this man was the shadow behind the throne, the kingmaker of the West. He couldn't be emperor himself, of course, a barbarian on the throne. The people wouldn't stand for it, though he did the next best thing. He appointed them. It was a parade of puppets, each one more pathetic than the last. Ricimer would pick some obscure senator or a pliable noble, dress him up in the imperial purple, and prop him up on the throne. The new emperor would get his face on a few coins, enjoy the palace amenities for a year or two, and then, when he started getting ideas above his station, Ricimer would get rid of him and install a new one. It was a brutal, efficient, and deeply humiliating cycle. We had emperors like Avitus, who was more interested in feasting than ruling, and was eventually starved to death. Then there was Majorian, a genuinely capable man who actually tried to reform the state and fight the Vandals, a noble effort. Ricimer, naturally, had him arrested and executed for the crime of being too competent. It sent a clear message to any future imperial candidates. Your job is to look good and do nothing. Anything more will be considered a breach of contract. The whole affair was a grand farce, a piece of political theater designed to maintain the fiction that Rome was still in control of its own destiny. The Senate would dutifully approve Ricimer's choice, the people would cheer at the coronation, and everyone would pretend that the man on the throne was something more than a glorified placeholder. We were all actors in a play we knew was a lie. But the alternative, admitting that we were ruled by a barbarian general, was simply too depressing to contemplate. And the Eastern Empire in Constantinople watched all this with a mixture of horror and smug superiority. They would sometimes try to intervene to prop up their own candidate for the Western throne. They sent us Anthemius, a Greek noble with a distinguished pedigree. He and Ricimer hated each other on sight. It ended, as these things always did, with a civil war in the very streets of Rome, the beheading of Anthemius, and another victory for our kingmaker. The East eventually learned to just leave us to our squalid, self-destructive games. The tragic part is that some of these puppet emperors actually believed in the role. They believed they could make a difference, that they could restore the glory of Rome. They would issue grand proclamations, make stirring speeches, and draw up ambitious plans for the reconquest of lost provinces. And all the while Ricimer would be standing in the shadows, a cynical smile on his face, waiting for the moment to pull the plug. It was like watching a child play at being a king, knowing that the real king was just waiting to take the toys away. This charade drained the last vestiges of dignity from the imperial office. The throne of Augustus became a poisoned chalice, a temporary post with a high probability of a violent end. No sane, ambitious man wanted the job anymore. It was left to the desperate, the foolish, and those who had no other choice. The line of emperors became a succession of non-entities, their names barely remembered even now, just a few years after their deaths. Libia's Severus, Olybrius, Glycerius, they were ghosts on the throne, their reigns as fleeting and insubstantial as smoke. And then, after Ricimer finally died, of natural causes ironically, proving that the gods do have a sense of humor, the game was taken over by other barbarian generals. The pattern remained the same, a new puppet, a new pretense of Roman rule. We had Julius Nepos, chased out of Italy, ruling in exile from Dalmatia, a sad, forgotten man clinging to a title that no longer meant anything. It all culminated in the final, perfect, and most pathetic act of this tragicomedy, the year 476. The emperor was a boy named Romulus Augustulus, a child given the grandest names in Roman history, Romulus our founder and Augustus our first emperor. It was a cosmic joke. This little boy, a pawn in his father's political games, was to be the last emperor of the West. The barbarian general Odoacer, tired of the pretense, simply deposed him. There was no great battle, no dramatic last stand. Odoacer just sent him into retirement, gave him a nice villa in Campania and a generous pension. The last Roman emperor wasn't martyred or murdered. He was made redundant. It was the most ignominious end imaginable. The empire didn't fall with a bang, it fizzled out with a shrug and a severance package. And so, the show is finally over. The lights have gone down, the actors have gone home, and the theater is empty. The illusion of control, which we clung to for so long, has been shattered. We are now officially what we have been in reality for decades, a collection of barbarian kingdoms on the soil of a once great empire. The purple robes are packed away, the throne is gathering dust, and the city is quieter than it has been in centuries. But even as the curtain falls, even as we stand here in the ruins of our own grand narrative, there is a story here that must be told. A story of how power can become a performance, how an empire can become a hollow shell, and how the greatest tragedies are often indistinguishable from the most absurd comedies. It is a lesson in the dangers of self-deception, of pretending to be something you are not, and you, my friends, are the ones who can ensure that this lesson is not forgotten. If you have enjoyed this chronicle of our imperial collapse, if you have found a dark sort of wisdom in the spectacle of our decline, then I urge you, do not let the story end here. Keep the tragic laughter going. Like and subscribe. Your subscription is a defiant encore in the face of an empty stage. Let your click be a testament to the enduring power of a good story, even when the story itself is one of failure and farce. Every subscription is a seat for the next performance, a vote to keep the lights on, even if it's just to illuminate the ruins. So do it. Now. Before Odoacer decides to tax private broadcasts. Think of it as joining the tragic chorus, the group of onlookers who see the folly of the main characters and comment on it for the benefit of the audience. In a world where our leaders were mere puppets, let us, the people, become the true storytellers. Let us seize the narrative and make it our own. Join us. Let the history books record the names of the puppet emperors and their barbarian masters. We will record something far more important, the feeling, the irony, the sheer breathtaking absurdity of it all. We will be the ones who remember not just what happened, but what it was like to watch it happen. And that, my friends, is a story worth subscribing to. I've been your host, a citizen who is seriously considering a career in satire. There's certainly no shortage of material, and this has been the final chapter in the tragicomedy of the Western Roman Empire. Or is it? As long as we are here to tell the tale, the story of Rome is never truly over. So stay tuned. You never know what new absurdity tomorrow might bring. Good night, and may your rulers be more than just decorative. It's a low bar, but these days you take what you can get. A very good evening, my fellow relics. Welcome to what may be our final broadcast under the comforting, if entirely fictional, authority of a Western Roman emperor. There's a strange quiet in the city tonight, a stillness. It's the kind of quiet that follows a very long, very tedious play, when the audience has finally realized there will be no grand finale. The end of the world, it turns out, is terribly understated. For centuries we've been braced for the apocalypse. We expected a grand, earth-shattering cataclysm, a final, heroic battle for the soul of Rome. We imagined fire, floods, the sky falling. What we got was administrative restructuring. One day you have an emperor, the next you just don't. It was less a collapse, more a quiet sigh. Very Roman. The official end of the Western Roman Empire came not with a bang, but with a bureaucrat's memo. The year is 476, a date which I suspect will be of far more interest to future historians than it is to us. The man at the center of it all was a boy named, in a final exquisite twist of irony, Romulus Augustulus. He was the son of Orestes, a Roman general of dubious judgment, who thought it a good idea to put his pretty child on the throne. The boy was a prop, a placeholder in a game that had already been lost. The man who ended it all wasn't some slavering monster from the dark forests of Germania. He was one of our own, a barbarian general in the Roman army named Odoacer. He led a coalition of other disgruntled mercenaries who had a simple and frankly reasonable demand. They wanted land in Italy. Orestes, the emperor's father, refused. Orestes, being a practical man, had Orestes executed and then dealt with the boy emperor. And here is where the story defies all epic conventions. There was no siege of Rome, no dramatic storming of the palace in Ravenna. Odoacer just walked in. He looked at the child on the throne, this last, pathetic echo of 1,000 years of glory, and he pensioned him off. He deposed Romulus Augustulus, stripped him of his purple robes, and sent him to a lovely villa in the countryside with a generous annual income. The last emperor of Rome wasn't martyred, he was retired. It's the most civilized and most humiliating end you could possibly imagine. And what of the symbols of power, the diadem, the imperial standards, the sacred purple robes? Odoacer, in a stroke of genius that was both pragmatic and deeply insulting, had them all packed up in crates and shipped off to the Emperor Zeno in Constantinople. The enclosed letter was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive diplomacy. It basically said, we don't need one of these anymore. One emperor for the whole lot is perfectly sufficient. By the way, I'll be ruling Italy in your name now. Regards, Odoacer. And so the Western Roman Empire was officially dissolved. It was an acquisition, a hostile takeover conducted with all the pomp and ceremony of a provincial tax audit. The Senate, that ancient and august body, even sent a letter to Zeno endorsing the whole affair, stating that the West no longer required its own emperor. It was a collective shrug, a weary admission that the game was up. The farce of an independent Western court, propped up by barbarian warlords, had simply become too exhausting to maintain. For the average person in the street, what changed? Absolutely nothing. The sun rose, the price of bread was still too high, and the local tax collector was still a thief. The same senators met in the same curia, the consuls for the year were still appointed. Odoacer even minted coins with the Eastern Emperor's face on them, a lovely gesture of nominal fealty. The illusion of Rome continued, just with a slightly different and more honest management structure. It is this lack of drama that is the most shocking thing of all. We have been falling for so long, the final impact with the ground was barely noticeable. It was like a slow, lingering illness. The patient had been in a coma for decades. The official declaration of death was a mere formality. The soul of the Western Empire had departed long ago, leaving only a twitching, hollowed-out corpse. The real fall of Rome was not a single event in 476. It was the crisis of the 3rd century. It was the Battle of Adrianople. It was Alaric's sack of the city in 410. It was the Vandal fleet cutting off our grain supply. It was the endless civil wars, the debased currency, the crushing taxes, the flight of the elites. The deposition of Romulus Augustulus wasn't the cause of death. It was just the signing of the death certificate. We are now, officially, a part of the barbarian kingdoms. Odoacer calls himself King of Italy. The Visigoths have Gaul and Spain. The Vandals have Africa. The world we were born into, the world where Rome was the undisputed center of all things, has vanished, not in a blaze of glory, but in a slow, almost imperceptible fade to grey. And yet, life goes on. The farmers still plough their fields, the merchants still ply their trade, and I am still here, broadcasting into the quiet night. The end of an empire, it turns out, is just another day, Another set of problems, another set of compromises. The human capacity for adaptation is a remarkable thing. We can get used to anything, it seems, even the death of a world. But as we stand here, in the quiet twilight of our civilization, looking back at the long, slow, and often absurd road that led us here, it is a story that demands reflection. It is a story of how strength can become weakness, how order can descend into chaos, and how the greatest of empires can die, not with a roar, but with a whimper. It is a story that you have been a part of, just by listening. If you're still processing this anticlimax, if you feel that the end of this 1,000-year story deserves more than just a passing note in a future historian's ledger, then I ask you, for one last time, to join us. Be sure to subscribe. Your subscription is a defiant refusal to let this story end quietly. Let your click be a final, rousing chorus after the tragic play has ended. It is a testament to the fact that, while the empire may be gone, its story, its lessons, and its memory will endure. It is a way of ensuring that we, the last generation of the West, have our voices heard, our experiences recorded, our perspective preserved. So do it, now, as a final act of Romanitas. Think of it as the foundation stone of a new community, one built not on legions and laws, but on memory and understanding. Let us be the ones who sift through the rubble, who piece together the fragments of our broken history, and who try to make sense of it all. The age of emperors is over. The age of storytellers has just begun. Join us. Let the kings and the warlords have their brief, bloody moment on the stage. We will have something far more lasting. We will have the narrative. We will have the final word. And in a world where so much has been lost, that is a victory in itself. I've been your host, a citizen of a city that is no longer the capital of anything, but is still and will always be Rome. This has been our chronicle of the fall, a long, strange, and often ridiculous journey that we have taken together. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this. The broadcast may be ending, but the story is far from over. Good night, and may you live in slightly more interesting times, though not too interesting. I think we've all had quite enough of that, so we come to it, the end of the broadcast, if not the end of the world. The fires have mostly died down, leaving behind the blackened skeletons of once great buildings. The traitors have either won or been betrayed themselves. The last sad excuse for an emperor has been pensioned off. The great roaring beast that was Rome has finally, definitively, whimpered its last. We are left in the quiet aftermath, to pick through the rubble of our history and wonder what comes next. We've chronicled the whole sorry spectacle together, haven't we? From the first cracks in the marble to the final pathetic collapse. We've laughed at the absurdity of our revolving door emperors. We've marveled at the creative accounting of our bankrupt treasury, and we've watched, with a kind of morbid fascination, as the barbarians at the gates became the landlords in our villas. It's been a long, strange, and deeply educational journey into the anatomy of a dying empire. What is the legacy of all this, then? Ash, certainly. A city of ghosts and ruins that will take centuries to rebuild, if ever. And irony. Heaps and heaps of delicious, bitter irony. The irony of a civilization that conquered the world but could not control itself. The irony of an empire that built wonders of engineering but let its foundations rot. The irony of a people who prided themselves on law and order, yet descended into a chaos of their own making. It's a legacy that is both tragic and, you have to admit, darkly hilarious. We have learned that nothing is eternal, no matter how grand the title or how strong the walls. We have learned that loyalty is a currency more volatile than any silver denarius. We have learned that the line between civilization and barbarism is a thin one, and that it can be erased not just by a sword, but by a tax bill, a food shortage, or a simple loss of faith. These are the lessons written in the ashes of our world, the final, brutal wisdom of a fallen empire. And so, as the twilight deepens over what was once the eternal city, this has been Quintus Flavius, your humble and slightly singed guide through the glorious, inglorious end of an empire. We saw the fires, we felt the betrayal, and we lived the slow, agonizing death of something we thought would last forever. We have stood on the precipice of history and stared into the abyss, and we have done it together. If this desperate, darkly humorous transmission has illuminated the grim absurdity of history for you, or perhaps made your own Monday feel a little less apocalyptic, then my work here is done. My hope, my only hope, is that in sharing these stories, these moments of terror and absurdity, we have created something that might just outlast the rubble. A community of witnesses, a shared memory, a testament to the fact that we were here. We lived, we laughed, we despaired, and we endured. Keep listening, keep questioning, and for the sake of all that's left, keep that subscribe button pressed, because even from the ashes, there are always stories, and perhaps a few laughs. Your subscription has been more than just a click. It has been a defiant shout into the darkness, a refusal to let this story fade into silence. It has been the one constant in a world of chaos, the one thing I could count on as the city fell apart around me. For that you have my eternal, if somewhat devalued, gratitude. Until the next broadcast, if the barbarians don't cut the wires, Valeti, farewell.